The NAACP is calling on athletes and fans to boycott college teams in states that have moved to limit black representation. Last month, the Supreme Court limited the Voting Rights Act, effectively preventing states from considering race when drawing congressional maps. Since then, Louisiana, Alabama, South Carolina, and Tennessee all moved to redraw their maps. Some experts tell ABC News redistricting could wipe out up to a third of black lawmakers' seats in Congress. And now, the NAACP is hoping to leverage the South's love of college sports to stop what it calls a sprint to erase black political power. NAACP President and CEO Derek Johnson is here for more. Derek, thank you for coming on. Now, you say the NAACP will not watch the same institutions that depend on black athletic prowess to fill their stadiums and their bank accounts remain silent while their states strip black communities of their voice. What will it take for this boycott to make an impact?
Well, it is very important for parents and student athletes to understand their value, their power, and their voice. These states are now moving very quickly to implement policies to eliminate the ability of African Americans to fully engage in the electoral process. They are trying to fit everyone into a 1950s reality, particularly in the former Confederate states. And so athletes from communities impacted, but athletes in general, should not pad the bank accounts, generating billions in dollars in revenue for state institutions of states that will deny their right to vote and prevent their full voice to be heard.
Now, Derek, Republicans behind these new maps argue they're just complying with the Supreme Court's order or remedying unfairly drawn districts. They say the districts that could be changed may still elect black representatives to Congress. What's your response to that?
Well, that is beyond untrue. You take the state of Tennessee, the Memphis community for many years. They were able to elect a candidate of their choice. That candidate happened to be a white gentleman. So this is not just about electing black people. It's about black voters having a true opportunity to be represented in Congress to ensure their needs, interests, and values are also at the table. For decades, in fact, for over a century, southern states drew lines or created processes to prevent black folks from participating through vote suppression methods, through drawing political boundaries to limit access for community-elect candidates of their choice. And for the first time, we would begin to really see the impact and the opportunity of fairly drawn districts. And now these states are trying to reverse decades of progress.
Okay, Derek, I want to talk about your methodology here. The college football transfer window is closed until January, and the next round of high school recruits, they actually won't officially commit until after the midterm. So is it too late to make a difference?
But this is not about an electoral transaction in November. This is about the ability of African Americans to be fully represented and participate as citizens. This is about equal protection under the law. For us, this is about African Americans to be engaged and not repeat what we've seen after the Reconstruction movement. After Reconstruction, there were efforts like this, although districting wasn't on the table, to suppress the black vote, to minimize the voices of the black community and remove from policy decision-making input of the black community. That this should not be acceptable, not only for the African-American community, but for anyone in this society.
But Derek, we are in a new era right now. This is the NIL era. How realistic is it for 17 and 18-year-old recruits to turn down millions of dollars if these teams offer it to them?
Well, unfortunately for this country, we have universities all across the country that's competing for some of the top athletes that is coming out of high school. So what we're saying is you have a choice. If the school in Alabama is pursuing you, there are options in Oregon, in California, in Michigan that you should consider. If it's a close race between going to University A and University B, I think the choice is equal. Go to a place where you are respected as a human being, as a citizen, and as a potential voter.
All right, NAACP President and CEO Derek Johnson, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
The NAACP.
Welcome Welcome. Happy Friday. Welcome to On the Shoulders of Giants. I am Joseph Ward. Please hit that like button, comment, subscribe, share, and please do hit that hype button. Please do hit that hype button. All right, you saw the video. We got to get it in. Derek Johnson, what you just talked about didn't make no sense at all. No sense at all. Go to universities that you're more respected. So because these universities are in states that are not hell-bent on redistricting, that means the black athletes who go to these schools will be treated like humans. Really, Derek? Really? So if they go to University of Alabama, Auburn, Florida State, any of these schools in the South, if they go to any of these schools in the South, they will be treated less than human. Really, Derek? Really? My question for the NAACP is, are you going to ask all of your black politicians, your black business people, all the black well-to-do people who make money in the South and these southern states, are you going to ask them to boycott their jobs? Because I think this is so cowardly by these old ass people. This is so cowardly to ask these young college athletes to jump in and fight something that these fools have messed up. Let's remember, I'm going to help us remember how we got here. We didn't get here because football games. So y'all think that Republicans only are in the South? And remember, this redistricting, the redistricting is not a black and white thing. It's a Republican Democrat thing. Black and Democrat are not synonymous. This redistricting is not a black-white thing. It's not along racial lines. This is a Democrat-Republican thing, and Democrats trying to get us to fight their battles, especially these young kids to fight their battles. And I'm not here for it. I think this is sickening. Derek Johnson, you and your friends are cowards. Y'all are in the National Association for Advancement of Cowards and Punks. Y'all should be ashamed of y'all old selves. All y'all old people not willing to make the sacrifice y'all asking these teenagers and people in their early teens to make. And you're not willing to make this sacrifice. But hey, I'm going to make sure we remember how we got here. All right. So, of course, we're having a serious conversation because this is about power. This is about sacrifice. And this is about real political strategy. And I'm glad that the interviewer asked the questions he asked, but I wish he would have asked harder about strategy, because how exactly will these athletes not going to schools in the South help redistricting? How? So, as you know, the NAACP is calling on young black athletes to boycott major Southern universities because of the Supreme Court's latest voting rights decision. They're asking teenagers, many of whom come from poor and working class families, to walk away from scholarships, NIL opportunities, national exposure, and possible professional careers. And let me say this, I am one who understands sacrifice. I am one who advocates for sacrifice. I am one who talks about sacrifice. I am one who's willing to sacrifice. I'm more willing to sacrifice my job. I'm willing to sacrifice my job before I ask these college athletes to sacrifice their chance to do something with themselves. Us old people, us adults, we should be the ones on the line, willing to boycott, willing to risk our jobs. Y'all young people, any young black athletes, any parents of young black athletes, friends, family members, listen to my voice. If you hear my voice, listen to my voice. Don't listen to the NAACP. If the University of Alabama give you a scholarship, go take it. Auburn give you a scholarship, take it. Ole Miss, take it. Florida, take it. Florida State might take it. Take them. Go to school. Set yourself up. Do not make a sacrifice that these old cowards are not willing to make. And remember, we didn't get here We didn't get here because of sports. We got here because of democratic failures, right? And that's crazy that they have to ask that, right? That even asking young people to do that. So once again, why are young black athletes being asked to carry a burden? And hit me good now. I want you to listen at me and listen at me good. Why are young black athletes being asked to carry a burden that generations of political leadership failed to prevent? Why are young black athletes being asked to carry a burden that generations of political leadership failed to prevent? Because let's remember, this Supreme Court ruling did not come out of nowhere. It didn't come because Donald Trump woke up and decided to be racist. No. I was in a discussion with somebody earlier in the week trying to blame this on Trump. This had nothing to do with Trump. This was Republican Democrat. And remember, as president, Trump did what he was supposed to do for his party to position them. The Democratic presidents didn't. Remember, this was decades in the making, right? For over 40 years, conservatives built legal organizations, cultivated judges, flipped state legislators, captured governorship, and strategically focused on the courts. They strategically focused on the courts. They understood that political power is not just about who becomes president. It's about who controls the system underneath the president. Meanwhile, too many black voters and Democrats were politically conditioned to believe that symbolism was the same thing as power. Black Democrats, we believe symbolism is the same thing as power, and that's another thing that's being asked. This is a symbolistic gesture that they're asking these young people to make. We celebrated representation while institutions were quietly being lost underneath us. And now that the Voting Rights Act has been weakened, the solution we're being offered is college athletes boycotting. I'm gonna say that again, and you tell me if it makes sense. The Voting Rights Act have been weakened because of over 40 plus years of the Democrats, and especially black Democrats, celebrating representation while institutions were quietly being lost underneath us, right? So the solution is college athletes not going to play at college, at Southern universities. That's the political strategy. Teenagers, right? Young black men and women trying to escape poverty through sports. At this point, once again, I would rather make the sacrifice than ask them to make that sacrifice. The fact that that's the strategy is a problem, right? So that means to tell me, right? Y'all trying to tell me that the political class, the civil rights leadership, wealthy donors, major corporations, celebrity activists, and elected officials couldn't stop this over 4 decades. But now an 18-year-old linebacker from Georgia is supposed to save black voting rights by refusing to play football at Alabama. Yeah, all right, whatever. All right. That's not serious political strategy. That's foolishness. That's symbolism. And I want to be very clear tonight. I want y'all to listen at me and listen at me good. There's anger behind the NAACP's campaign. There's fear behind the redistricting and black voting power. And I understand the fear and I understand the anger. It's real. But the fear and the anger comes from a lack of real strategy and a lack of real execution. And remember, strategy matters. Sacrifice without structure becomes symbolism. Sacrifice without structure becomes symbolism. Emotion without organization becomes performance. And outrage without measurable goals becomes political theater. So remember, we're going to revisit how we got here, what mistakes were made, and why the Voting Rights Act became vulnerable, and whether the latest boycott effort is actual strategy or another example of Black Americans being emotionally mobilized without long-term planning. Because at some point, we have to stop reacting emotionally and start thinking institutionally. Damn, black people. I'm sick and tired of old black people doing stuff like this. This is stupid. So this is the NAACP's Out of Bounds campaign. Once again, calling for black athletes, recruits, fans, and donors to withhold support from public universities in southern states accused of weakening black voter representation after Supreme Court's latest Voting Rights Act ruling. And remember, voting representation isn't weakened. Democratic representation is weakened. Remember that. This is not about race. This is about party. Democratic representation is weakened, not voter representation. The campaign targets states like Florida, Georgia, Alabama, Louisiana, Mississippi, South Carolina, Tennessee, and Texas, places where college athletes generate billions of dollars and rely heavily on black athletic talent. And remember, man, look. If I was a young black college athlete coming out of high school this time, top recruit, and Florida State, Alabama, and Ohio, hey man, I'm going where I want to go. And if it's in the South, it's in the South. The NAACP, the CBC, and the rest of you politicians should have done y'all job. Shut up. So we're going to revisit how black voter protections became, well, not black voter protections, how democratic voter protections became vulnerable. What political mistakes were made over the last 40 years and how this foolishness is symbolic theater. It is, right? So once again, let's revisit what actually happened to the Voting Rights Act, right? The Voting Rights Act was already being weakened for years. The recent Supreme Court ruling did not happen overnight. This was the culmination of a decades-long legal and political strategy. So the key moment came in 2013. Remember, Shelby versus Holder in 2013. That decision effectively destroyed the pre-clearance mechanism of the Voting Rights Act. Before Shelby, states with histories of racial discrimination had to get federal approval before changing voting laws and district maps. After Shelby, those states no longer needed federal permission. Critics warned immediately that states would begin redistricting aggressively in 2013. Who was president in 2013? Reducing majority black districts or Democratic districts. Because we got to stop thinking along racial lines and start thinking along party lines, right? Because black people are so tied to the Democratic Party, right? Changing voting procedures and diluting black or Democratic voting power. Remember, our black voting power is diluted by the way we dilute our own power by the way we engage politically, right? So that's what happened, right? The new Supreme Court decision accelerated that process, right? The recent Louisiana ruling further weakened Voting Rights Act protections and opened the door for more aggressive redistricting fights across southern states. So now multiple states are attempting to redraw congressional districts in ways that critics argue is reducing black political influence. So the NAACP said, our response and our strategy is targeting college athletes as leverage because all the money that they bring these schools, it goes into the political yada, 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 yada. So that means that, once again, it exposes the lack of strategy by the Democrats. So what's being done with all the billions of dollars that's being generated by these schools who are in states that don't support this stuff? What are they doing with their money? A lack of strategy. A lack of strategy. Hey, just go to school in the North. Don't go to school in the South, even if you've always wanted to. Hey, make the sacrifice for us because politically we are inept. Young people don't do it. So we got to ask this question, focusing on us as black people, politically, right? Why are black Americans so vulnerable to one Supreme Court shift? Once again, why are black Americans, or why were black Americans so vulnerable to one Supreme Court shift, right? Black Americans politically, we've been trained to think that Symbolic representation equals power. That's why we always go for the popular person that makes us feel good. That's how black people continue to get scammed. That's how people like Dr. Cheyenne Bryant and Umar and Brother Polite and all these people, Malachi Z. York, and all these people I've covered, been able to do what they do, including the Democratic Party, because black people love symbolic representation. To them, symbolic representation equals power. Presidential elections are everything. We do not focus on local elections. The voter turnout on local elections be so low, it's crazy. And then we complain. And if they do vote, they're not even paying attention to the different candidates, the platforms, and who they're supposed to vote for and why. A lot of people are going in with the idea of vote blue no matter who, or if I know you, I'll vote for you. And black people have been trained to think that loyalty to one party generates protection. No real strategy. Conservative legal organizations spent generations cultivating judges, building legal networks, influencing state legislatures, controlling governorships, and prioritizing judicial appointments. And while all that was happening, the Democrats, meanwhile, focused heavily on presidential races, neglected state legislatures, lost political infrastructure on the local levels, and failed to prepare for long-term judicial warfare. Remember, strategy. The Republicans played the long game. Conservatives understood that local elections matter even more than the presidential elections. Governors matter. State legislatures matter. State legislatures. I'm messing this down with legislatures. I said it right the first time. State legislatures matter. Goddamn word killing me tonight. Federal judges matter. Supreme Court appointments matter. Right? That strategy ultimately helped reshape the Supreme Court. And that ultimately led to the Supreme Court decision, right? Whether people, me, you, anybody, whether we agree with the ruling or not, the organizational discipline, it mattered, and it played a huge part. All right, so I have another video that I'm going to play for you. And then, I'm going to get back into giving my opinion. But I want to play this video for you as well so you can get more of the talking points and the opinions of the people who are pushing this boycott, especially the NAACP. So check this out.
Welcome back to the Fact of Politics, Power, and the Playing Field. The NAACP is issuing a bold ultimatum to black athletes and fans boycott universities in the South, including right here in Texas. The civil rights group is taking direct aim at red states and are redrawing their congressional maps to maximize Republican power. It comes on the heels of a Supreme Court decision that severely limits using race to challenge redistricting. Could this boycott make a difference? And joining us here in the studio to talk about it, former professional athlete LaMarcus Newman, Texas State Representative Ron Reynolds, and attorney and former athlete Audia Jones. Glad to have you both here.
So, Buddy on the left in the all black, yeah, I don't know why they brought him there. And the buddy in the middle, he didn't even turn on critical thinking. Shout out to the black woman. Shout out to the beautiful, intelligent, brave, strategic black woman who's up here speaking the truth, speaking with some sense. Let me continue. Y'all remember to hit that like button. Please remember
a factor on censored. So, Audia, this call to action by the NAACP, you think it will make a dent? Do you think it will work? What?
I don't agree with the call to action. I don't agree with the redistricting. I do not agree with the tactics of the NAACP. So as a former Division I athlete, current attorney, I know what a Division I full ride meant for me and my family. I know what it means for other athletes out and youth out there. But to have an organization want to use our most vulnerable parts of society as crash dummies to further their political gain, I do not agree with. So essentially, you want to use a vulnerable section of our community, our children, which are, most athletes are about 16 or 17 when they get their full scholarship. It's a full ride, where in the Black community, the median household is about $56,000 annual income, where you have college tuition is about $80,000 annual cost, to say turn down your scholarship so that we can keep our political or elected positions that we've held for decades on decades. And now you're left with your family with no generational wealth, no way to get to college. Good luck with that, but we appreciate your service.
Representative Reynolds.
And I'm glad, I love the way she put that. Decades, y'all held those seats and didn't do what you were supposed to do. Now you're asking these athletes to make a sacrifice y'all punk asses ain't willing to make. Bullshit.
There it is.
I respectfully disagree. I understand the position of which she says it, but these are drastic times. Drastic times call for drastic measures. They want our Black athletes to play on their football fields, on their basketball courts, and on their tracks, but they don't want them in seats of representation in their states. I think the NAACP took the right position. This is a bold move to make a point that you're not going to reap the benefits of our Black athletes making dollars, putting fans in the seats, selling merchandise. We can take these Black athletes and allow them to go to HBCUs or other states where they're not racially gerrymandering and discriminating against Black representation. So I think this is a great move by the NAACP, and I strongly encourage these athletes to consider making this move. This is the only way we're going to get their attention.
All right,
you know why he's happy about this? He's from Texas, because nobody's asking him to sacrifice anything. All of these people who are happy about this, they're happy about this and supporting this because nobody's asking them to sacrifice anything. If it's drastic times calls for drastic measures, then your old ass need to be willing to sacrifice your job. Your old ass need to be willing to boycott your job. Your old ass need to be willing to give up your job. All you old bastards in the NAACP and all you old bastards who support this, why aren't y'all standing up willing to not go to y'all jobs? Why y'all not willing to sacrifice checks? Why y'all not willing to sacrifice anything else, any promotions, anything that could come with y'all professions? I don't see none of you all standing up willing to sacrifice anything, but you asking these young kids to sacrifice their futures. And y'all done messed up. Y'all done messed this whole thing up. We wouldn't even be here if Democrats would have done what they're supposed to do over these past 40 years. You a punk, and you should be ashamed of yourself. Talking about you think it's a great move. If you think it's such a great move, you in Texas, sacrifice your check, sacrifice your job, sacrifice your family. You put yourself on the front line. Hey, young athletes, do not do this. Do not listen. If any of you young athletes listening to this, you stupid. Do not do this. Do not sacrifice yourself for a group of people who are not willing to fight for you. That's crazy. Do not build a house in the middle of a fire. Do not sacrifice your future for people who are not willing to fight for you properly. Do not do it. Any young athletes who hear my voice, your family, your friends, parents, do not listen to the NAACP, because the NAACP don't care about your children. They only care about maintaining their seats. They only care about maintaining their money. They only care about maintaining their positions. Do not listen to them. Tell my drastic times call for drastic measures. Well, why aren't y'all willing to sacrifice y'all jobs? How many Black Democrats live in the South? How many old ass Black Democrats live in the South? So if it's that drastic, be the example. But y'all ain't gonna do that, are you? Because y'all some punks.
Marcus, your thoughts?
My thoughts on it is I look at it in both ways. I see benefits on both sides, and then me being a former college collegiate athlete too as well, I do understand that as a college athlete where you have these college athletes where they receiving millions of dollars. They're receiving over $100,000. So therefore, you know, it can change the generational wealth for the families, but at the same time, why as the college athletes and not as the regular student population in the college to be able to stand up for something like this, because when you ask the collegiate athletes, they losing a lot. So, you know, you got these kids, they staying with grandma, they got about 5 or 6 brothers and sisters, and then they seeing the opportunity to go to college and receive this NIL deal worth millions of dollars, and then being able to make a stand, and they can, you know, really lose their scholarship. And I'm not saying it's right or wrong, and I disagree with the current situation, but at the same time, I think a regular student can stand up for this rather than a student athlete. But as you say, to each his own, you know.
All right, and Audie, it sounds like, you know, and what you're saying is you're using them fodder for war. Throw them out front.
Correct.
Yeah. Right.
And, you know, pawns.
Correct.
Right.
So, and I want you two to start that conversation
honestly,
with Representative Reynolds.
A stronger term would be crash dummies. When we talk about real advocacy, I'm someone that ran for an elected position. We have these elected officials that want to say, I want to know, what is the upside for the student athlete? There is no upside for the student athlete. The only one that sets to risk to reap any rewards or gains is the elected official who has been redistricted out. That's it. There is no upside for the athlete. The HBCUs, we should have been pushing our black athletes to go to the HBCUs with or without the Supreme Court's decision to redistrict. But all of a sudden, now when these elected officials who have been in seats for decades and decades, when they are about to lose that position, they hold on with their cold, dying hands. Now we want to say, oh no, let's throw our children out there to the fire.
Well,
Let's not gather around and protect them. Let's put them on the front lines on the firing squads.
Well, with that same rationale, we wouldn't have our voting rights today, because it was bold, good trouble that our ancestors made by boycotting in the southern states, the Montgomery bus boycott, by refusing to ride on bus, refusing to go to certain restaurants and eat that they weren't welcome at. That led to ending racial segregation, right? So I'm telling you, this is a bold move, because we're sick and tired of not having representation.
Is he stupid? Is he stupid? Don't he realize those movements happen because of real, actual strategy? They didn't just wake up one day and say, hey man, let's make the young kids go out and sacrifice everything. Like the young lady said, the only one staying to gain from this is the black Democrats, the political figures, those figures. The kids stand to lose everything, and then the political people, the politicians, gain everything. This is nowhere near the Montgomery boycott, any of those other boycotts, because they had strategy, had actual strategy behind them. Do you realize that Rosa Parks wasn't just some woman who was tired on the bus? Do you realize it was actual strategy? It was set up for her to do that, to help kick off the Montgomery boycott. I know you've been lied to all your life, and they told you she was just tired one day. No, it was strategy. I hate when he doesn't know what he's talking about, and he just gonna pick, just cherry pick historical events out of the ether and say, hey, this is why those college athletes, those should be the only ones who make the sacrifice. Remember, these are the only ones they're asking to make the sacrifice, because if those college athletes make the sacrifice, that would change the political landscape. How dumb is that? How dumb is that?
When the Supreme Court made this decision, these southern states immediately acted. And we're saying that you want our black athletes on the field, but you don't want black representation in the courtroom, in halls of justice. So those families don't have people that can advocate for their interests. That is having taxation without representation.
So I have 2 points, and one point that goes back to what you said, what our ancestors did. They stood up, and I applaud them for what they did, but what they didn't do was throw our 2 most vulnerable parts of our community out to the dogs and out to the fire hoses. They didn't say, hey, children, come out here. Hey, elderly people, come out here. They had the people that were in the positions that were strong and that were able to go up front, stand on our behalf. We have black elected officials who are in positions to fight. If you want to fight, fight in the courtroom.
But it was young people.
Fight in legislature.
It was young
fight at
people
the ballot box.
At the lunch counters.
But don't fight with our
young people.
It wasn't our 16 and 17. It wasn't our 16 and 17-year-old children that are trying to establish generational wealth for their families.
So what type of athletes do you think your 5 stars, your major athletes will take a stand?
They can go to California, New York, New Jersey. There's many states that they can go to. We're saying don't go to these southern states that have taken away black representation.
That's it. You make
Out
the
of
sacrifice,
time, guys.
punk.
Great conversation.
You make the sacrifice, punk. You big punk. You make the sacrifice. This boycott is asking young black athletes to absorb the sacrifice, while older political leadership absorbs very little risk themselves. The boycott is asking young black athletes to absorb the sacrifice, while older political leadership absorbs very little risk themselves. That's wild. That's cowardly as hell. This boycott is targeting the wrong people. The athletes did not draw the district maps. They did not decide Supreme Court appointments. They did not create the legal strategy that weakened the Voting Rights Act. They didn't do that. Yet they're being asked to sacrifice their chance at changing their future economically. They're being asked to sacrifice exposure, career opportunities, networking, and professional development. Meanwhile, the politicians, the ones who messed this up, the actual ones who messed this up, the buddy in the middle, the punk bald head dude in the middle, once again, he is so gung-ho on this because he don't have to sacrifice nothing. He's in Texas. Sacrifice your job. You boycott. Politicians get to keep their salaries. Advocacy organizations keep funding, they keep fundraising, and the political leadership faces little direct sacrifice, if any sacrifice. Remember, symbolism is being confused with strategy by idiots. Idiots are confusing symbolism with strategy, right? The NAACP strategy may generate headlines, but those headlines will not bring political victories. They're always focused on headlines. So let me ask y'all something, my audience. Let me ask y'all. And I want you to give your answer in the comments. In your opinion, what measurable outcome would this boycott realistically produce? What measurable outcome would this boycott realistically produce? Will it help to change Supreme Court doctrine? Will it alter congressional maps? Will it help to flip state legislatures? Would it create new federal legislation? Will it increase black institutional power? Or does it only create symbolic protest energy? Y'all let me know what y'all think. And so remember now, the NAACP is encouraging athletes to consider HBCUs, right? So if it really is about institutional power, all these people would have been funding HBCUs over the last 40 years. They'll make sure they would have structured black banking to support HBCUs the way they're supposed to. The black legal institutions would have been supporting HBCUs like they're supposed to. Black media ownership would have been working with HBCUs like they're supposed to. The black political spaces, all of the institutions, anything in the black elites, anything associated with the black elites, the independent political structure, all those, they would have been already working and empowering and pouring into HBCUs like they're supposed to, not when it looks good for them. Boycotts without institution building often become emotional moments rather than long-term power shifts. And that's why we here. That's why we where we at now. And these punk ass, old ass people asking these young people to make that sacrifice that they're not willing to make. And they've been fucking the game up. They're trying to compare this to the Montgomery boycott and all and other protests of the past. And we got to remember now, what made like the Montgomery boys boycott, the civil rights movement, Olympic protests, you know, things like that. What made those effective was strategy, real thought out, planned strategy, economic coordination, organizational discipline, specific demands, and achievable political objectives. Stuff that made sense, that was realistic. We got to remember, this is crapping in your hand and throwing it at the wall. What the NAACP is doing right now, their demands, they're asking these young athletes to boycott, is taking the crap in their hand and throwing it at the wall. So I'm around this. I'm gonna close this. I'm gonna wind this down rather by asking these questions. Should black athletes carry the burden of fixing political failures? 40 plus years of political failures. Should black athletes carry that burden of fixing over 40 plus years of political failures? Why were black communities politically dependent on one legal framework or even one political party? Why were black communities politically dependent on one legal framework and one political party? What long-term institutions should have been built decades ago? What long-term institutions should have been built decades ago? Is symbolic protest enough in 2026? Is symbolic protest enough in 2026? Are black Americans reacting emotionally instead of strategically? I think we know the answer to that, right? Are black Americans, or more specifically, is the NAACP reacting emotionally rather than strategically? And what does real political power actually look like? Black people, what does real political power actually look like? At the end of the day, I don't care what none of these NAACP or anybody who agree with that stupid message says. This conversation is bigger than sports. This conversation is bigger than the NAACP. This conversation is bigger than one Supreme Court ruling. The real issue is whether black Americans truly understand how power works in America. Do you truly understand how power works in America? Power is not built in emotional moments. Power is built patiently. Power is built patiently. It's built institutionally. It's built financially. It's built legally. And it's built generationally. The people who weakened the Voting Rights Act did not wake up one morning and accidentally win. Oh, it's Tuesday, we're going to win today. No, they spent decades building courts, building organizations, building legal pipelines, building think tanks, building donor networks, and building state political control. You know, they use that S word that black people hate, strategy. So now the question becomes, what is our strategy? Or better question, what strategy are we going to come up with? Because if every crisis that happens leads to a symbolic protest without institution building, then we will continue reacting instead of governing outcomes. Again, I ask, why are teenagers being asked to make sacrifices that major political old-ass leadership failed to make themselves? If black political power is truly under attack, then where are the massive economic plans? Where are the independent institutions? Where are the coordinated legal infrastructures? Where are the long-term political academics, training future judges, attorneys, strategists, and governors? Because that's what real power look like, right? Not temporary outrage, not hashtags, not press conferences and stuff like that, demands and stuff, right? This moment should force Black America to rethink political strategy entirely. Not just how we protest, but how we organize, how we build, how we sustain, and how we stop confusing visibility with actual power. Because in politics, emotions may start movements, but institutions determine who wins. I'm Joseph Ward, and all I need you to do is think about it. Please hit that like button, comment, subscribe, share, hit that hype button, and make sure you continue to lock in with this channel. Make sure you got that notification bell hit and continue to tune in to all the content I'm dropping. Y'all have a happy Friday. Enjoy y'all weekend and go into this holiday on Monday. I love y'all.